Thank you for those wonderful words. I would like to take this opportunity now to introduce our keynote speaker and our distinguished alum, Ricardo Ramirez. Ricardo Ramirez is our longstanding and dedicated ILSP alum, graduating from ILSP in 1994. He earned his first law degree from the Autonomous Metropolitan University of Mexico. He's currently the founding partner of RRH Consultants, which provides legal advice in the field of international trade law. As litigator and adjudicator, he has participated in over 80 disputes brought under different trade agreements, covering a wide range of topics related to international economic law. He also advised the Mexican government in the negotiation of the USMCA. Ricardo was the first Mexican and the youngest, and I remember this, the day he was appointed to the highest court on international trade, the appellate body of the WTO. He served for almost 9 years and was elected by his peers for 2 consecutive terms as chair. On September 16, 2017, he was appointed by the chairman of the Administrative Council of the World Bank to the panel of arbitrators of the International Center for Settlement of Investment Dispute, ICSID, for a period of 6 years. He has been arbitrator in cases initiated under different trade agreements, as well as on investment arbitration tribunals, being the most active Latin arbitrator in this type of arbitration. He's currently chairing 8 investor state proceedings. Prior to his appointment, Ricardo Ramirez worked at the Ministry of Economy, where he represented Mexico and served as the lead attorney in several international trade negotiations, as well as in several disputes brought before the WTO and other international trade agreements. And in the private sector, he was the head of the international trade practice for Latin America at Chadbourne Park. And he is currently also a professor at the Faculty of Law of the National Autonomous University of Mexico and the chairman of the International Trade Professors Association of UNAM. He has been a dear friend, and he is very active in helping us in our trade program, having joined us for the WTO Moot Courts competition several times. I was hoping to join him this time in Mexico, but that was not possible. So Ricardo, thank you very much.
Hi everyone, hi Patty Day. Patty Day has always been very nice to me and continues to be. Let me say hello to my former Professor Berenson, which I was recalling that he was my professor and I didn't get an A with him, so shame on him.
Well, I think we could adjust the grade now.
And also want to say hello to Horacio Griguera, a most like a colleague of mine. How do I approach this? And of course, Patty Day always gives me the most difficult tasks. And how do I approach someone, some people that are out there that cannot see me, that I cannot feel them, and try to be inspiring and try to tell them something in this time that we're living in. So the first approach was like, let me use the let me put myself in your shoes approach. But to be frank, as I was doing that, I became terrified, because to be in your shoes now, and Professor Flynn talked about cleavages. Of course, I don't believe that there has been ever a time when the world has faced so many complex problems at the same time. To recall, we are facing a global economic crisis, an environmental crisis, and of course, a health crisis. On top of that, we are facing what some people characterize as the last cycle of technology development led entirely by humans. Artificial intelligence is defining and determining the next era of technology. All of this within a framework of international rules that are very fragile, as well as international institutions which are very fragile. If you come to think about it, you really are in the middle of the perfect storm, or rather what Nassim Taleb in the Black Swan calls the improbable, the highly improbable. And I start with a quote of him saying, our world is dominated by the extreme, the unknown, and the improbable. improbable according to our current knowledge. And all the while we spend our time engaged in small talk, focusing on the known and the repeated, this implies the need to use the extreme event as a starting point and not to treat it as an exception to push it under the rug. I also make the bolder and more annoying claim, he says, that in spite of our progress and the growth in knowledge, or perhaps because of such progress and growth, the future will be increasingly less predictable, while both human nature and social science seem to conspire to hide the idea from us. And I agree. We can predict the future, and we should look at this as the starting point. And as the Biden said, and I think very correctly, there are better times lying ahead. History shows us that crises are temporal. This is a very big storm, but the sun will come out. But I hope you realize that you are the generation that will have to solve the biggest mess that the humanity has ever entered into. The issues I will raise have been discussed for many years now. To me, the issue now is that you have to engage with them and pose concrete actions. You are the generation who will have to make concrete progress on climate change before we drown or we burn. First, by raising awareness of the problem, and believe me, there are some people that still believe there's no problem. And then by coordinating global policies to address this problem. You are the generation who will have to make countries understand the value and the need of a global set of economic norms, and more general, of global norms, which need to address global problems. You are a generation, hopefully, that will make us forget about human rights, because we are complying with them and there's no need to discuss them. You are the generation that will have to start a serious discussion about how to get rid of poverty and inequality. How do we concentrate and on the concentration of wealth and power? You have to address this issue about big data and information, who gets information and why. You are the generation who will have to establish the legal principles and societal values or norms to regulate those involved in designing and creating the algorithms and artificial intelligence. You will be confronted with a great dilemma. What are you gonna build, what are these algorithms and artificial intelligence for? To be more profitable or to build a better humanity? So you face a challenging but very exciting time. But how do you prepare for that? And for one, you have to realize that you never have to stop learning and being curious of learning more things. Some professionals argue that there be a need now to raise what they call hybrid jobs. That is, jobs that require technical proficiency as well as human skills. Recent reports suggest that human skills are more important now and showing more unmet market demand than technology skills. But what new human skills should you cultivate for preparing into the future? And this is my personal view. I believe that is decency and empathy. According to the Webster Dictionary, decency means doing the right thing, the correct thing. Is the longest, is doing the right thing, the appropriate thing. And there I tell you a personal story. When I got to the appellate body, somebody asked me, how do you get there? And of course, there were a lot of things that happened. a lot of stars had to align to happen for that to happen. But as I went back to what was really what happened, the turning point, or where were the crossroads that took me there, that lead me there, I always find 2 or 3 incidents in my life where I have to choose between the correct path or the more or the non-correct or the non-decent path or the more egoist path. And in all those decisions, I believe I did the decent thing. That at that point, I didn't realize that that was going to have an effect. But at the end, I think if you ask me what was the changes, the game changers in my life, was that when I had to make a decision, I choose the decent path. And I think that's very important that you need to build on. The other is empathy. There is this scholar, Coleman Flynn. She's a lawyer that discusses things about artificial intelligence. And she talks about the greatest attribute to be empathy. And I love one of the quotes of the paragraph that she has in her book, and I will read it to you. Empathy is the ability to put yourself in someone or somebody else, of something else position, to feel what they feel and to act accordingly, to share their experience. Empathy is a learned skill. We can practice it. Our mirror neurons can sense the feelings of others. Mirror neurons also fire in other species, from birds to primates. Empathy is the path to self-awareness and appreciation of the world around us. It leads to altruism and even to heroism. It is the bedrock of leadership of hope. Empathy leads us to help others, to care for one another. It's the antidote to dehumanization, to cognitive biases, to cognitive dissonance. It allows us to see the world as others do, to communicate, to understand one another. It's the essential emotional skill for the economic, political, and social systems we have created and will create. Empathy is at the core of our humanity. So be decent, be empathic. And that, in my mind, will get you to the other side. Thank you very much.
Ricardo, I think those were just amazing words. You always inspire us. I know that the comments in this section has inspired so many students before, and you will again. Your students are so lucky to have you there. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today and for those remarks. I want to